Well, hello there and welcome back to the channel. Hey, if you're new here and you like the content, please make sure you hit like and subscribe. Thanks a bunch. All right, guys, today's the day we're finally taking a look at this old Charvette that's been in my collection for quite some time. Every time I play this guitar, you guys seem to ask me a million questions about it, so I thought, you know what? Let's just get this out of the way. Today's the day. I'll grab it, we'll sit down, and yeah, we'll talk about it. I'll give you the specs on this, and I'll kind of give you the overview of what the heck a Charvette is anyway. So yeah, enough of my jabber. Let's get going. Oh, something I'm going to mention just before we get going, as with all my videos on this channel, I'm going to put timestamps down here, so if there's a certain piece of content you're looking for, just follow the timestamps, find yourself the content you're after. If you are looking specifically for things like tones, I'm going to tell you right now there's not going to be a ton. I will do a little bit of playing, but the pickups in these are aftermarket. These are EMGs. Charvettes definitely did not come with EMGs. So anything I play on this really isn't indicative of how one of these might sound stock. So take my playing with a grain of salt near the end, but I will do some demonstrations and some playing on this thing so you can actually hear what it sounds like. All right? Okay, let's go. Okay, so first things first. What on earth is a Charvette? Obviously the logo, if you look at it, it's going to tip you off right away who the parent companies are for this brand. Charvette, awfully a lot like Charvel, that's kind of the point. And if you look at that font, yeah, that's Jackson style font, right? So yeah, you'd be 100% correct. Charvette basically was a late 80s, early 90s entry-level shred guitar manufactured by Charvel, except under the Charvette branding here. Now there's not a ton of information on Charvette floating around because this was a pretty short-lived product line. Charvettes were only made from, I'm going to say 89 through to 92. Now some people will say these were made as long as 94. I'm going to tell you right now, I haven't come across any of the guitars anyway made that late. Everything I've come across has been from 92 at the latest. Some were definitely sold after that in stores, or it's just, you know, overstock or old inventory items, things like that. But as far as I can tell, production on these stopped by 92. And another quirky thing about these Charvettes is the country of manufacture. So some of you that have played these or have come across them, notice that half the times it'll sticker on the back. Yeah, the one on this one's gone. That'll say either made in Korea or made in Japan, because indeed these Charvettes were made in either Korea or Japan. I'm going to go ahead and say the vast majority of the ones I come across have been made in Korea. For sure I can tell you that this one is a Korean made one. It just feels like a Samick instrument to me. And yeah, you'll never guess what. Samick was the company that was building Charvettes for Charvel in Korea during this time period. So no surprises there. Most of the ones you will come across will be Korean made, but keep an eye out because indeed there are Japanese made ones. From what I can tell, it seems the majority of the Japanese made ones are the Charvettes that come with double locking tremolos instead of the single locking tremolos, but we'll talk about that more as we get going. Now, another quirky thing about this line is you might have come across Charvel guitars from the 80s that have Jackson pickups. This one obviously has EMGs in it, but anything you came across that was Charvette like this would have had Charvel branded pickups. Just kind of linking these brands so that it's quite obvious who the parent company is. But just an interesting quirk about the Charvette lineup, should you find an original Charvette, odds are you're going to find Charvel pickups. Hey, hang tight a second. I've actually got a Charvel with Jackson pickups just so I can show what I'm talking about, all right? Hang tight. All right, guys, sorry about that, I'm back. So, yeah, back to what I'm talking about with the pickups. So this here is one of my lovely Japanese import Charvels, and you can see the pickups here say Jackson on them, right? So this is kind of the thing that was going on in the 80s. I've also got, oh, let me just put that down and be careful with it. I love that guitar. Here's another one with, which you can see here. These are Jackson active pickups. This is another old Charvel. This one here I think is probably from 1990 or so. That's when the logo on these changed over to the more of the Jackson style font as opposed to that font, but that's for another video. We'll talk about that another time. But anyway, yeah, not unprecedented for the Charvettes to be doing that. The Charvels were having odd brand linkages on their pickups at this time anyway. I digress. All right, back to the video. Okay, but anyway, back to the Charvette lineup. So another thing which is kind of a bone of contention for a lot of people about this lineup is the wood that these are manufactured with. I'm going to tell you right now, it's a bit of a mystery. It's not stated anywhere what kind of wood these are made out of. The only wood that is actually specified in any of the marketing that Charvel was putting out at the time is that it is hardwood or solid wood, which indeed, it's a solid body. But the thing and the problem that a lot of people have with this is that some of these are solid wood and some of them indeed are made out of plywood. Multiple layers of ply put together, and then a guitar is built out of that. Of course, it's extremely important to keep in mind that the Charvette lineup is supposed to be budget friendly, so of course manufacturing guitars out of ply is a lot less expensive. I'm not a big guy to go into the whole tone wood chasing argument over things, but I have had plywood guitars in the past that have sounded okay. They weren't the greatest ever, but I will say that Gibson indeed did build the Zoot Suit SG made out of plywood, and that thing certainly wasn't cheap. So is plywood really a bad thing? I'll leave that for you in your own opinion. Now, the Charvette lineup itself is a really tricky thing to try and sort out. There seems to be a lot of mislabeling of brands on the internet, so I'm going to give you a quick overview of all the models that are guitar related that I can find that are Charvettes and how to identify them, and that should just shed some light on this lineup and kind of how this whole thing works and how you can identify which one's which, because yeah, it's a bit of a nightmare trying to sort these out. Kind of like those PV tracers I did a review on a little while ago, if you wanted to check that out. Okay, so to kick things off for the Charvette lineup, we have the Model 100. Now these were made from 1989 to 92. They were a humbucker single coil configuration. The important thing to see about this is it's not a locking bridge. These are just your regular non-locking trims. We've got a reverse headstock on the 100. So that's kind of your bare bones, basic entry-level Charvette. So following that, we get the Model 150, which was produced from 1989 to 1992. And the specs on this one are the same as the 100, but now we're looking at a single locking Bandmaster trim with a regular headstock. So this one is not reverse. One thing I'm going to say about that Bandmaster trim is that it is god-awful. I've encountered them on lots of other Samics from this era. It's a single locking trim design and it's quite terrible and cheaply made. Nothing will stay in tune with them. So you're going to find a lot of Charvettes with this particular trim on it as opposed to a proper double locking trim. So when I say double locking, I'm referring to something kind of more like a Floyd Rose. When I say single locking or Bandmaster, it's going to be that piece of crap I just told you about, all right? Okay, so moving right along, we are on to the Model 170. Now this one was produced from 1991 to 92. And this is the same as the other 100 models, but this one has a full locking trim and no tone knob. Another quirky thing about the Model 170 is we're looking at 24 frets, which are kind of more akin now to a Gibson style scale length of 24 3/4 scale. Whereas pretty much every other Charvette is more like a Jackson or anything else. We're looking at a regular Fender 25.5 inch scale length. Following that, we get the Model 175. Now this one was produced from 1989 to 1991, and the specs on this one are the same as the 170, but again we're looking at 24 frets, a regular headstock, and no tone knob. Following the 175, we are into the Model 200. Now this one was manufactured from 1989 through to 92, and of course the specs on this are the same as the 100 models, but big important but here, now we're looking at an HSS configuration, a reverse headstock, and again, just kind of like the Model 100, the 200 just has a regular Strat style trim. Following that, you get the Model 250, which was manufactured from 1989 to 1992. This one has that god-awful single locking Bandmaster trim, regular headstock, and is HSS configuration. Following that, we get the Model 270, which was produced from 1991 through to 1992. We are looking at an HSS configuration, 24.75 inch scale length. And overall, this is really the same as the 250, but it's a 24 fret model with a double locking tremolo and no tone control. And I'm going to say this, whenever you encounter one of these that is 24 fret, they are all 24.75 inches in scale length, so kind of more akin to a Gibson. Following the 270, we get the elusive Model 275, which was made from 89 through to 91. You're going to find these in HSS configuration. They have 24 frets, no tone knob. And the last model in the Charvette lineup is the Model 300, which is exactly the same as 100 or 200, except it is SSS and a regular Strat style trim. So there you go, guys. There you have it. That is the entire lineup of Charvettes in a nutshell. Now, there are more Charvettes than that. Those are just the ones that I'm telling you about. There are obviously Charvette bases as well as Charvette acoustics that were manufactured during and around this time period. I don't know if those were made beyond 92 or not. Maybe that's where that whole claim that Charvettes were built up until 94 comes from, but I don't know, so I'm not going to say they were. As far as the guitars, I'm going to say definitively, for me anyway, they ran through 89 to 92. Okay, cool. Okay, well, glad we got through that. Let's talk about the guitar in question now, finally. The one that I have, this model 250, of course, which I know is a 250 because it came with that horrible Bandmaster trem I've been waxing on about. Yeah, utter garbage. If you encounter a guitar with them, throw it away. Terrible, terrible trems. There are replacements for them, but there's not many, and I'll talk about that in a second when we get there. So anyway, yeah, so this is a 250. Obviously, I know it's a 250 because of the trem that came on it, the HSS configuration. I bought this actually quite inexpensively in parts. I bought it from a guy, the neck was off it, the pickups were out of it. It was more of a husk than anything, and I just needed a project. It was winter. I thought, why not? I can put it back together and maybe turn it into a half-decent shredder. And yeah, that's what I've gone and done. So first things first, let's talk about what this one is in particular. Obviously, it's a 250 model. It's a Super Strat. I'm going to say the body on this is fairly large. It's not something like a Jackson Dinky or something. Actually, hold on. For comparison, let me go grab a Dinky and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, right, so this is kind of more like it's a Super Strat, obviously, but it's more like a Strat than anything because here's a Dinky. Do you see the size difference in shape? That's pretty darn profound. Again, this is more bulbous, more like a Stratocaster, whereas this is really, you know, the modern edgy kind of Jackson. You know, slightly smaller, like 7/8 body size, and just, yeah, quite different. I will say that's one of the first things I noticed about this guitar when I actually got it all together out of the parts I had was that, yeah, it's a little bit more substantial than the, you know, the Dinkies I'm used to playing. But I kind of like that. Anyway, so yeah, just for size comparison, yeah, a little bit bigger, a little bit bulkier, bigger horns. But let's talk about that some more in detail. So yeah, the body itself. This one actually, you can tell it's been dinged and it's all beat up because it's old and has clearly been played quite a bit. But it is a bigger shape, very much like a regular Strat. You've got yourself a nice cut here for your arm. You also get yourself a tummy cut there. Horn access is good, but again, very much like a Stratocaster. You don't have any problems getting up here, which is good. The finish on this is one of the reasons why I bought it. That's one thing I'm going to say about the Charvette line in general, is there are some wild, awesome finishes that you can find on these Charvettes. Like I've seen crackles, I've seen bursts. This is kind of like a light baby blue Daphne blue thing, which is really neat. This one's cool too because you can see right here, it's kind of oxidizing off kind of a weird green. I don't know if that's maybe the lacquer turning on it. It's poly, but you can see it. Some spots are quite green, other spots are more blue. Yeah, I don't know. Kind of neat, but hey, there you go. I've heard from a lot of people the electronics kind of are meh in this. I don't know. I haven't played the original Charvel branded stuff that did come in these. I've only played these EMGs. What's in this one, which actually came with this in parts, are EMG 89s, which sound pretty awesome. I quite like them. I've got these wired in. I've also got it split like that so I can get kind of more of a single coil sound out of the bridge. Just something I did because, I don't know, I like doing stuff like that. Gives you a little bit more options. This one obviously has this little black thing here, which is a kill switch. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an obnoxious guitar. I kind of like obnoxious things. A kill switch is awfully obnoxious and suits my needs. As far as the knobs go, this is, again, just a habit I have. These are dice. For some reason, I tend to put dice on my guitars. Nothing fancy there. I just buy dice, drill a hole in them, make knobs out of them. Works fine for me. Yeah, obviously HSS, and the other thing I'm going to tell you is we're looking at a 5-way position switch. I've seen some advertising, well, not advertising, I've seen these listed elsewhere where they say this is a 3-way switch, but definitely not. I mean, it's HSS. It'd be kind of useless as a 3-way if you were just, you know, toggling on and off individual pickups. Anyway, as far as the bridge goes, this obviously is not stock. What is on here, I'll get a close-up on this so you can actually see it, is this unit right there. So this is a Wilkinson double locking trem. These are pretty good units. These are, I would say, comparable with like a Floyd Rose Special. The important thing though is, and this is true of anything made from Samick in this era with that Bandmaster trem, is the spacing on the tremolo itself is a bit different than a Floyd Rose. So you can't just go buy, you know, a Floyd Rose Special or something similar like that to put on one of these because it will not fit. And a lot of people pass on these guitars for that exact reason, but yeah, this is one of the very few trems, if not the only one that I know for sure will fit the spacing. Again, the Wilkinson double locking trem system. Oh, as you probably already noticed, I've got a D tuner on here too. Yeah, I added that just so I could drop down to drop D if I so choose to do. And to facilitate that, you can see here, I've got a brass screw right there that I just put in there as a stop, and it's adjustable. Oh, and I put a big brass block on there as well. Again, just something for my plain preferences, but necessary if you want to have it decked. You need to have that stopper back there to make it work. But anyway, yeah, that's the body. This one is actually not in terrible condition considering, but it definitely has some nicks and battle scars on it from, oh, I don't know, over 30 years of love, abuse, really. Anyway. One more thing I will say about the body, which you probably already noticed with me flipping it around, is I'm kind of lucky. This one clearly was a solid piece of, we're going to call it hardwood because nobody knows. But yeah, this isn't a plywood one. Keep an eye out. Some of them are. Again, you may care, you might not. Me, I don't really care too much. I just like a nice finish and a super strat. And yeah, this is a nicely finished super strat, so it works for me. All right, the neck. So let's talk about the neck. First things first, we're obviously looking at 22 medium jumbo frets. So this is very much akin to a Fender, scale length 25.5. Yeah, it feels very much like a Jackson or a Charvel of this era. Not surprising, it's the same company. The profile is like a super thin C. Quite thin. Some might say uncomfortable. I tend to prefer more of like a Kramer or BC Rich style neck, which is a little bit thicker, a little bit beefier. But this is still fine, still very comfortable. I actually got quite lucky. This one is in really lovely shape as far as just how it feels. No nicks or anything back here, which is crazy considering this thing was literally in a parts box when I bought it. But yeah, no, it feels quite good. Oh, obviously you can tell that this is a maple neck, no surprise. And the fingerboard is rosewood. Now the radius was a bit tricky to track down. From all the information I can find, it seems like this is probably about a 12-inch radius. And I can see some curve on it, so you know what? I'm gonna buy that. We're gonna say that the Charvettes had a 12-inch radius. I don't know if this is true for the 24.75-inch scale length, but for sure for this scale length, that seems to be the case. All right, guys, so this is kind of more of a quirky thing, kind of for older guitars from the late 80s or even early 80s up into the early 90s, is this kind of nut setup here. So you've got a regular nut here, and this is a lock nut behind it, or as you know, Kaler likes to call them, a string lock, because that's exactly what it does. It locks the strings behind the nut. This is kind of an inexpensive way to get around doing a lot of retooling to put in an actual like Floyd Rose style lock nut. I'm going to tell you right now, I actually don't mind these at all. I have quite a few guitars with this style of nut, and as long as you make sure that your saddles have graphite or nut sauce or something, some kind of lubricant there and are cut properly, they seem to work just fine. So no worries, no fault there. One thing I do like about it, just this is ancient, I don't think you can get them like this anymore, is that you can use a flathead screwdriver on there, which is really useful instead of trying to find Allen keys or something like that, because I know I'm always looking for them and I can never find them when I need them, right? The headstock, of course, as we already mentioned, is, yeah, it's a Jackson style or Charvel style headstock. It's the same shape. Nothing weird going on there other than it says Charvette using the kind of toothpaste Jackson logo. This one's in pretty good shape, although there was a nick right on the back there. There it is, there's my little nick. I bought it and that little piece was off, but I mean, yeah, that's not too bad, all things considered. The tuners on this are pretty nice. Let me show you the tuners, actually. See if I can get that to focus. They say Charvel on them, so these are Charvel branded tuners, and yeah, they're good. I like these quite a bit. They feel nice. Yeah, probably the same kind of stock you'd find on an actual Charvel, so that's a pretty nice bonus. If you get one with the original tuners, those are pretty good. Some people like to change these. I don't really understand why. Again, anything where you're locking down your strings like this, you're going to be using fine tuners to do all of your adjustments, so that really doesn't make much difference putting any different tuners on there unless you just truly cannot stand them. But this is just fine. So yeah, that's my Charvette 250. Again, these are pretty inexpensive. You can find these things ranging in prices all over the place, from 25 bucks in pieces to, you know, all the way up to as high as $700 for the Japanese made ones. At least that's as high as I've seen them listed on Reverb. Not that we can trust Reverb pricing. But yeah, if you do come across one of these, they're pretty half decent. I'm gonna tell you right now, the neck feels just like my Jacksons or my other Charvels, and it's a Charvette, and they're a hell of a lot less expensive. So if you do find one and are looking for just a fun super strat, and don't mind maybe having a mysterious wood body or plywood body, definitely check these out. As far as playability and sound goes for this one, I can't really speak to how the original pickups sound, again, because these are EMG 89s, which sound awesome, by the way. These are probably my favorite active pickups, but that's another story. But yeah, the playability, the feel of the neck, just like a Jackson, just like a Charvel, you'll feel right at home. Anyway, I did promise I'd do something nice, produced and rocky, and play you guys out, so let's do that. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.